Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Panessa, and I'm the Student Success Specialist and Principal of Secondary Continuing Education. And we are very happy this evening to have some wonderful guest speakers who are going to be sharing their wisdom and their experience with us to help support you in your continued journeys into post-secondary and beyond. Let us begin, though, as we always do, with a prayer. If I could ask Frank Nardi, Pathways Consultant, to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Lou. In the name of the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit. Prayer for students. God of light and truth, thank you for giving me a mind that can know and a heart that can love. Help me to keep learning every day of my life, for all knowledge leads to you. Let me be aware of your presence in all things and at all times. Encourage me when work is difficult and when I am tempted to give up. Encourage me when my brain seems slow and the way forward is difficult. Grant me the grace to put my mind to use exploring the world you have created, confident that in you there is a wisdom that is real. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Frank. And we'll continue with our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the ancestral lands and waters of all Indigenous people who have left their footprints on Mother Earth before us. We respectfully acknowledge those who have walked on it, those who walk on it now, and future generations who have yet to walk upon it. We pray to the Creator for strength and wisdom that all may continue to serve as stewards of the earth. And in that spirit, I'd like to indicate that the York Catholic District School Board is committed to creating and maintaining an equitable learning environment reflected through inclusive programs, curriculum, and practices, with a mission to ensure that every child has an equal chance for success. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And in that spirit, this evening, we will be providing you with good information, resources, connections that you can explore so that you can make good decisions as you continue on your pathway. But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce Nalini Jugnunde, who is our Human Rights and Equity Advisor, to bring greetings from the board.
So good evening, all. Lou, you know, when you take my words of Nelson Mandela, that's not fair. So I'm going to repeat it, okay? So I'm honored to be here this evening to welcome you all. While the COVID situation has created many challenges, working in partnership with the Pathways Department under the leadership of Lou Panessa, the Student Success Specialist, we are pleased to continue our speaker series for students and parents. The YCDSB strives to identify and eliminate systemic barriers with the goal of closing achievement gaps and improving success among students from equity-seeking groups. With this in mind, we are here to support an ongoing dialogue with the community, listen to their needs, and ensure that students and their families are supported in achieving their maximum potential, making fully informed decisions, and choosing appropriate pathways. To that end, over the next month and again in the spring, the Pathways team, along with the Human Rights and Equity team, will be providing information sessions intended to provide students and parents with the tools they need to be able to access a variety of in-school and post-secondary pathways and opportunities. Our hope is that these sessions will provide you with the tools to be able to make good decisions and to discern your chosen pathway to success. As Lou mentioned, I reiterate in the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I would like to thank our guests this evening for taking the time to lead us with great information that will support you in your choice. And I would like to thank all of you for your participation. And I hope you have a good, great, informative evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nalini. So I'd like to, before we actually get into our presentations and I introduce some of our guests, I just want to remind you, as I indicated in the email that went out to you a little bit earlier today, that you have the opportunity to ask any questions that you like. You can access the link by clicking on the question mark in the slide deck. You should have gotten that in the email. And if you don't have access to that at this time, what you can do is you could visit http://bit.ly/YCDSB-questions. Okay, so if you want to take a picture of that in case you want to submit a question via a Google form, by all means do so. We will be monitoring that form, and we'll try to address as many of those questions as we can through our presentation. And for those that we don't get to tonight, we'll create a frequently asked questions document that we'll share with everyone who's in attendance today. Okay, so moving on, I'd like to welcome our presenters. First up, we have Linda Lossick, who is the Coordinator of Special Programs Secondary for York Catholic District School Board. Hello, Linda. Thank you so much. I would also like to introduce Liz Henriquez, who is the Liaison and Recruitment Officer in the Registrar's Office, the Domestic Recruitment for George Brown College. And I'm very thrilled to have met Liz because she is truly a font of knowledge, and I'm very excited to have her share her expertise with us this evening. And I know we also have supporting Liz this evening, Adam Lawrence, who is here to support her with some of those questions. I had to wait for Google to show me the name. So let us begin with Linda, and I will take us to your slide deck, Linda, so that you can take us through.
Thank you, Lou. And welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled that you're joining us this evening. I'm very happy to be able to be the first up because too often I find that when parents of students with learning needs start to consider post-secondary pathways, they are tremendously concerned about what is out there for their kids because they know that they've had a lot of support along the way in elementary and high school, and they aren't quite certain what that support will look like in post-secondary. I am thrilled to tell you that it will be very similar to the type of support that they've been receiving all along. And so I just want to put some of your fears at ease. They are common fears that parents have. All of us are very nervous about our kids as we get set to launch them. But I do want to reassure you that the types of supports that they've been receiving while they are with us here in York Catholic will in some ways continue when they move on to college and or university. So Lou, if we could start with the first slide. One of the most important things for everybody to understand is that when your child is applying to college or university, it is with full privacy, and there is no information on any of the applications that go out to the colleges and universities that indicate that your child has learning needs. And that is critical. We, as a secondary learning institution, are not able to, by law, inform the colleges and universities of anything with regard to the student's disability, that they have an IEP, that they require an accommodation plan. That is absolutely not in our purview. So when your children are applying to college or university, they apply like everybody else does. There is no indication on any of the application paperwork that they have any types of learning needs. So essentially, students diagnosed with a disability who are currently accessing special education supports usually will have access when they move on to college and university. And the key here is that the transcript, which will indicate all of your child's marks that will be shared with the colleges and universities when they apply, will not indicate in any way that an IEP was in place or that an accommodation plan was in place if the student was accommodated only and earning regular credits. So this is really important for parents to understand. When your child gets accepted, they get accepted on their own accord. It has nothing to do with any of the paperwork that goes along with them in their applications. Next, please, Lou. So who can access accommodations in college and university? Any student diagnosed with a disability. So it could be a learning disability, a mental health disability, that could be ADHD, that could be a diagnosed anxiety disorder, it could be depression. A physical sensory medical disability as well is a reason for which the colleges and universities will provide support to students. And then many of our students have multiple disabilities, and they will be provided with support accordingly when they get to college and university. Next, Lou, please. So how and when can a student access accommodation? So this is key. So initially, when the application goes out, we anxiously wait for a response from colleges and universities that our children have applied to. Once your child has decided which college or university that they are going to be accepting and entering, at that point, they are really highly encouraged to contact the accessibility or disability office at the college or university of choice. And they could be accepted as early as March, April. And I recommend to my students that they should immediately be contacting the college or university if they are hoping to disclose their disability in order to be accessing accommodations. And again, this is self-disclosure. The school cannot do any of this disclosing of the disability to the colleges and university. The only way that the college and university will have any knowledge that the student has a disability and therefore requires support is if the student discloses that information, him or herself, and that's key. So I always say to students, the second you accept that offer, call the accessibility or disability office, and it's time to get the ball rolling. So once you've disclosed the disability, it could be a learning disability, it could be ADHD or others, the university or college will ask for documentation as proof that that disability indeed does exist and that it's relatively currently diagnosed. And once that is all submitted to the college or university, what happens there is that the student is placed on something called an accommodation letter. In elementary and in high school, you're used to an individual education plan, an IEP. No longer is an IEP what the students use to access accommodations. What happens is the university or college work with them to develop something called an accommodation letter. That accommodation letter is what students will use to share with the professors, which will explain what type of accommodation they require in their courses. Typically, the professors, college and university, don't even know who that letter is coming from. They don't necessarily have a right to know that this is the person who's requesting an accommodation. Maybe they need recorded lectures, photocopied notes, things like that. That can be provided without informing the professor who that person is that is requesting the accommodation. If we can go next, please. So what is the documentation required? So as I said, we want our kids to call the accessibility or disability office. And when I refer to it as the accessibility disability office, that's like the special education office at college or university. And so as soon as they call, they will be asked, what is your disability? And do you have paperwork to prove that that is indeed the case? So that is what they will be doing. They will be booking an appointment with your child, and they will be asking for certain documents to help them decide what the action plan will be, what the next steps will look like, and what the accommodation letter will contain. They will always ask for the grade 12 second semester IEP. They like to see what types of accommodations were required for the student in order to be successful. They aren't mandated by law to provide the same types of accommodations that we provided in the IEP. Instead, they really look closely at the psychoeducational assessment or report. And often this is where we get questions around what is required when we're saying that the college or university will need a psychoed assessment. They do want something relatively recent, between 4 to 5 years, no older than that. And often parents will approach the school and say, you know, my child is going to college or university. It would be very helpful if we could receive a reassessment as he or she moves on. And that unfortunately is not a practice that we engage in as a board. You know, we absolutely couldn't do the 600 or so assessments that would be required as exit assessments as students leave. But it's not wise for us to be doing that anyway, because the colleges and universities really have very specific types of data that they're looking for in the reports that they'd like to see in order to guarantee accommodations. They also want to see adult norms, adult test scores. And so we tell parents all the time, Wait until your child enters the college or university of choice. Once they start their relationship with the Disability Accessibility Office, they will be very well supported and instructed on how to pursue next steps with regard to updating a psychoeducational assessment. An old assessment is still good to show as proof that that disability exists. But what's really important is that they will most likely be asking for an update, but in the interim, until the updated assessment can be completed, they will be offering basic types of accommodations, which will get the students through the time before that official assessment is shared with the Accessibility Office. Medical reports are the same. If it's a documented physical disability, a recent medical report will be required as well to access those supports. But what I want to reassure you about here is that you don't need to be panicking about this, especially if your child is in grade 12 right now, because the best practice here is to allow the Accessibility Office in the college or university to really lead you and your child through this whole process. And when I talked before about the fact that, only your child can disclose the fact that they have a disability, what's key is that, these kids are now considered adults. For the most part, they'll be 17, turning 18 as they enter college and university. Historically, colleges and universities have refused to speak to parents if they've tried to call to access information about their children because these kids legally are now no longer kids, they're adults. That's changed over time, especially when the kids have disabilities and maybe can't necessarily advocate and speak for themselves as well as they could, and so they require the support of the parent. If you are seeking to be able to take more of an involved role with your child as they move on to college or university, you absolutely can do so, as long as your child signs off and signs a document to indicate that they're giving you full permission and right to do so. So that's something that you can absolutely pursue. But as much as possible, I'm sure you want to see your child fully independent and able to do that on their own. And so we really try to encourage students to really take the initiative on their own before they start to feel like mom and dad need to help out. So that's something we really try to work on with the kids before we launch them at the end of grade 12. Next, please, Lou. So what types of accommodations are provided? They are very similar to what we have. We provide special education teachers. The colleges and universities provide the disability counselor or learning strategist. They don't go to class with the student, and the support is a little different in nature than what the special education teachers provide, but nevertheless, it's your person who's at the office, at the university, ready to support you in any way that they possibly can. Extra time is provided. This is a bit of a sticky one, though, because in college and university, they typically don't like to offer more than 50% extra time. Typically, it's 25%. And in high schools, we try to give as much as they need. Not always helpful, though, to prepare them for college or university. So we try to scale that back as they get to the senior grades. There is a test writing center, so kind of like the core room. If your child is used to writing tests and exams in the core room, they can use a computer for tests and exams. They can sign up for a note taker. There are tutoring services. Some you do have to pay for. Some are free of charge based on the student's disability. But there are such a wide range of accommodations that can be offered in college or university. And to me, that sometimes seems to be quite surprising for parents and students, but I hope it's reassuring that they will absolutely be supported appropriately when they leave us. Next one, Lou. So what are the keys to success for our kiddos who right now have accommodations in their learning? Self-advocacy is key, and we try to work on this with our students as soon as they enter in high school, and we expect that looks better and better as they approach grade 12. You need to be able to speak up for yourself. You need to be able to say to the Accessibility Center and the professor, this is what I need to be successful. And I have a right to this based on my disability. And that's really the language we try to, respectful language, teach our students how to use when they leave us and go off to post-secondary studies. Time management is key, and it's connected with reduced course load. A lot of students don't realize that they have the ability to reduce the course load. And you know, what's the rush? A lot of us went to OAC grade 13. These kiddos are ahead of the game anyway. A lot of them are graduating college and university at 21. It's so young, they have time. Let's slow them down in some ways. A reduced course load is healthy for a lot of our kids. Essentially, we look at 1 hour of university or college class time is typically about 2 to 4 hours of additional study outside of the classroom when that lecture is done or tutorial is done. So it's really good to break down how much time is going to be required of my child. And, you know, if time management is an issue, and if they do get stressed over big course loads, then that is something that I hope they do consider. But that is something that the Accessibility Disability Office will be speaking to the students about. Self-determination to me is one of the biggest pieces here. I say to my students all the time, an IEP doesn't tell me, you know, it doesn't say you can't learn. On the contrary, it's telling me you indeed can, and this is how. So I hope that these students really start to realize that they need to be confident in their skills and abilities. They're earning credits. They're doing super well in high school. They've gotten into that program in college and university, and they can do it. And so, you know, it's really that whole I think I can, that positive self-talk is really, really important for our kids. And as much as we can, when they try to be negative, we need to shift that and make sure that they understand they're going to be positive. Self-care, as you know, more and more these days, we're worried about our kiddos. Mental health is an issue, and you know, for all of us too, especially in a pandemic, and especially, you know, in this very stressful world today. So I hope that we are all encouraging our kids that as much as school and academics are important, so is having some fun, so is, you know, going out to that party on the weekend responsibly, of course, so is exercising, so is going for a walk when you just, you know, can't look at your books anymore. Sometimes kids forget to care for themselves, and so we might have to give them a bit of a reminder. So this is really important to continue to watch our kids as they move through post-secondary studies. Next one, Lou. So I just wanted to very quickly mention that there are so many untapped scholarships and bursaries for kids of all kinds, some specifically for kids with learning disabilities, medical and physical disabilities. And you know, people don't know about them. And honestly, sometimes these bursaries and these scholarships are never tapped into, and they just go to waste. So I hope that when your children do reach out to the Accessibility Office, this bursary in particular for students with disabilities, if they are applying for OSAP, it's something that they can consider accessing as well. They only need to qualify for $1 of OSAP, and they could potentially qualify for this bursary. But if you simply Google Ontario scholarships for students with disabilities, you will see pages and pages of really, you know, interesting scholarships that your child with, you know, some type of a letter of support, a reference letter, could apply to and could access as far as funding to support their university and college endeavors. So don't leave that untapped. Do a little bit of research with your child to see if there are any monies there to be had to support them in their endeavors. Next one, Lou. And this is a big one. This is quite new. Most colleges and universities in Ontario have what they call the summer transitions programs. Now, given that we're in a pandemic and we don't do much face-to-face, most of this has become virtual, but still worthwhile. And for those kiddos that are very stressed about the transition from, you know, one safe and secure setting, the high school, to this scary world of college and university, this opportunity is invaluable. It really does ease their fears, their anxieties, and they start to feel like they're ready to take on the world when September rolls around and their classes start. So I highly, highly recommend that you look into this with your children and that you consider enrolling them in a summer transition program at the college or university. And one more, Lou. Almost done. So this is a website that I highly recommend you take some time exploring with your kids. I will tell you that our secondary special education teachers, you know, as part of my direction to all of them before the kids leave us, they must ensure that the kids have taken some time to explore this resource. It is wonderful. So first and foremost, I keep talking about the Accessibility Disability Office. This link here, this document, the Transition Resource Guide, will provide direct links to every single accessibility office in every single college and every single university in Ontario. So Lou, let's show them. If you click on the colleges tab, and you can just go to the first one, Algonquin College. Notice that all the colleges are listed there. If you scroll down, here is all the information that will get you started with regard to the accessibility services at that particular college. So you don't have to go far. It tells you the documentation that's required, the contact information, who to reach out to, how to get the ball rolling. So this is absolutely critical. So this is really all I wanted to share with you tonight, but I just wanted to reassure you that your kids really will be well looked after in our Ontario and college universities. They really do have to do due diligence and support any individual with a disability. And so it's just important that you know and your children know how to access that support. And just one last thing I always say, because a lot of kids say to me as they're leaving, Miss, I don't think I'm going to need the help. I think I'm going to be fine. If I need it down the road, I'll sign up with the accessibility office. My advice to you is, even if you have a child who is really resistant to this extra support and they think they can go it alone, what we see too often is November rolls around, first year university, that's that crunch time, exams, essays, labs are all due, and they start to really feel it. And then they decide that they want to go access the extra supports. And by then they can, but it's going to take quite some time to get all the paperwork processed and to get everything in place to access the supports. And so the whole semester could go by and you're waiting for all of that to be processed. So rule of thumb is get this done beforehand, just like an insurance policy. You pray to God you're never going to need it. But if you do, it's set up and it's ready to go. And so that's what I recommend to all parents and students who have learning needs. If you're eligible for the support, take it, because there could come a day when you need it, even if you don't want to start off the year with the accessing, with the access to those supports. So that's it. I wish you all the best of luck as your kids are moving towards a new phase in their lives. It's exciting and it's scary, but I always say knowledge is power. So the more information that you can share with your kids and that you can, you can reveal to yourselves, I think the more comfort it will bring you as they do start to get prepared to launch. And it's very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you so very much, Linda. It was great to have you here and great for you to share all of this wonderful information with our students. Moving on to the next part of our evening, I would like to welcome Liz Enriquez, the Liaison and Recruitment Officer, Registrar's Office Domestic Recruitment at George Brown College, who will be sharing some of her expertise and knowledge with you right now. So great to have you here, Liz. I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to be here just because I learned so much from Linda's presentation.
I know, it was awesome.
Amazing. Because I always say, I've been doing, can you see my, okay, it's coming up. I'm always nervous that I'm doing something wrong and you're not going to see it.
No, you got it. You're good.
Okay, perfect. So I've been at George Brown College for just over 20 years now. And you think you know everything, but I learned so much from Linda tonight. So I'm so excited. So thank you for having me, everyone. This is going to go, there's a lot of information I'm going to throw at you tonight. This is a comprehensive presentation that I've been delivering, oh my gosh, for at least 10 years now. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff. Please don't feel that you have to take a lot of notes, because the last slide of my presentation is going to give you a little QR code that you can scan, and it'll take you to my Dropbox folder, and you're going to be able to download a copy, a PDF of this presentation. And I have some FAQs about OSAP and a little document about scholarships and awards and stuff. So I'm going to zip through this as quickly as I can, but there's a lot of stuff. But again, you're going to get a copy. So right off the bat, we're going to start with that nasty 4-letter word, debt. So we're going to talk about that first. And there's a lot of different numbers that float around there about the average student debt load. Sorry, I'm just going to turn my camera off just so I can save a little bit of bandwidth. There we go. Perfect. So they are saying about the average tends to be around $27,000, and they say it takes about 10 years to repay, and that falls in line with what OSAP says as well on their website. They say that the average loan is paid back in about 9.5 years, and of course, having that extra debt load on top of people can sometimes delay them from being able to put down payment on a place or move out of their parents' house, which is every parent's dream, right? So again, hopefully some of the information that I give you tonight will help will help give some tips on that. Now, while 27,000 is a lot, we all should know that there are some career paths that'll lead to higher than average debt load. So usually the top two that come to mind is lawyer and doctor. So Ontario says that the average law student graduates with about $83,000 in student loans. And I have a friend whose husband, he had about 105,000. And then the average debt load for doctoral degrees is about 100,000 with about slightly over 13% owing over 200,000. And I have a friend who's a recruiter. His wife is a doctor. She's actually a cardiologist. And I said, hey, can you share how much your wife accumulated? And it was 235,000. And again, I've been doing this job for a long time and my jaw dropped. I had no idea. And I don't want to scare people when I put these numbers up, but usually when I'm presenting to a room full of high school students, they kind of think they know, but they don't know. Because when I show them these numbers, they're like, what? So it's just to put in mind the perspective of these are great careers to pursue, but just be prepared. And sometimes it allows them to be more diligent with saving and not overspending frivolously. And another reason why there's a lot more debt, I mean, tuition goes up almost every year. And especially in Ontario, we have had tuition increases higher than the average inflation rate. So again, you'll see the orange and yellow is across Canada for undergraduate and graduate, and then Ontario is even higher. So we tend to have higher tuition fees than other provinces, which unfortunately, I mean, we have great colleges and universities, so that's a plus. But again, that tends to lead to a little bit of the debt that students have. Now we're going to bring it back down to sort of the averages in Ontario. So in terms of a degree, you're looking at about 6,500. And just to preface it, that colleges offer bachelor's degrees. I don't know if y'all know that, but we've been offering bachelor's degrees at colleges for almost 18 years. So even Stats Canada counts college degrees in their data with university degrees. So you're looking at about 6,500. And then most college programs, which are more of the diploma, 2 and 3 year diplomas, tend to fall under 2,700. And then they also list private career colleges, which I don't know a lot about, but when I crunch these numbers on the OSAP site, they listed them because it is an option for people as well. So the amounts tend to fluctuate a lot. Now, that being said, here's some fees, some examples of what you're going to pay based on the subject. So again, it's not necessarily where you go to school, it's what you study at that school that tends to drive up the cost. Some programs cost more to run by nature of the equipment, the labs, the materials, the fees that are going to be associated with that program. And if you're going to one of those prestigious schools, they cost more, right? You could do commerce at one school and commerce at another school will be double. And some of those university prestige schools are deregulated. So they don't have to fall under a certain number with the government. They can charge above average fees. So just to throw out there that sometimes it's what you study versus where you study. And same thing for college. Being a college recruiter, I'm constantly having to debunk the myth that people think college is always cheaper than university. And again, it's not necessarily so depending on what you study. So here's a sample of just some of the programs at George Brown College, and you'll see the averages down at the bottom. And then when you get up into sort of the specializations, denturism and dental hygiene, top of the list, those prices are per year, my friends. And denturism and dental hygiene are both 3-year long programs. So multiply those numbers by 3. So again, it's not where you go, it's what you study that drives up the cost. I also like to talk about comparing career pathways because again, I've been doing this job for a long time. I'm also a mom who has a daughter who is currently in university. And I remember when she was in grade 12, at the graduation ceremony, and they'd be, the kids are walking across that stage and they'd be announcing so-and-so is graduating and they're going to yada yada university to study this, and there'd be applause. And I remember the parents standing outside chit-chatting and saying, where's yours going? Where's yours going? And I clearly remember that when someone mentioned their kid was going to college, they'd be like, "Oh, well, that's nice too." It's like there's always a double standard, and I can say this because I'm a college employee. I've seen it because a lot of parents think that you need to go to university to get a high paying job. That's not always the case. And there's a shortage of skilled trade workers in Canada right now. And apprenticeship is a great opportunity for any student that wants to get a great paying job. And this is just a comparison that I like to show, especially high school students when I'm doing presentations. I've seen this done with lawyer and plumber. This one happens to be teacher electrician. So one pathway that is traditionally pursued via university, and then another one that's pursued via apprenticeship. And as you can see, there's no right or wrong. It's what job you want to have basically will dictate where you go. But doing apprenticeship is great. They say you earn while you learn because the tuition costs are very low because the government actually funds a lot of the in-class training that apprenticeships do. They're getting paid while they're learning to be an electrician. Like, I don't know if y'all know that when you start an apprenticeship, you start off getting 40% of what that skilled tradesperson makes. And then over the long term, I mean, income is great. And future work advancements, they can become the manager, they can own the company. So I just always like to throw out there that we always talk about college and university, and sometimes apprenticeship gets a raw deal. And just to show it's such a great opportunity, and you can save a lot of money doing it that way and still get a great paying job. Now I'm going to bring it back down to sort of average costs that I showed you. And now I'm going to show you my daughter's costs because I like to show you a real human child. I'm a single mom. I've been raising her alone since she was born, so one income family. That's me. And she chose to go to Queen's University. And when she said she wanted to go to Queen's, I knew. I automatically heard cha-ching in my head because I thought that's going to cost a lot more money. So just to give you an idea, tuition tends to be around $6,000. This is when she started back in 2016. Her first year at Queen's, because she's in the the Faculty of Kinesiology, and back then there was a program called the Bachelor of Physical and Health Education. Her tuition first year was $7,500, so not a whole lot more than the average that was back then. Fees and supplies for her program fell around the average, which was about $2,200, because for her program she had to buy textbooks, a lab coat, and safety goggles for her anatomy and biology labs. That was it in terms of equipment. The big chunk of change, as you can see, was in living expenses, because when your child is going away to live in residence, I had no idea how expensive it was. So out of that 15,700, about 12,600 of it was residence and meal plans. So a lot of universities, if your child chooses to go away to school and stay in residence, they make it mandatory to purchase a full meal plan for first year. It's like they don't trust our kids being away from home for the first time and having to cook, which might be a good idea. So again, residence, full meal plan, everything you need for that dorm room. Basically, they move into a room that has a bed, a desk, a chair, maybe a closet. And then you have to factor in all the things like, a laundry basket, laundry detergent. She needed a printer and paper and ink. And we bought her a little kettle to go into her dorm room so that she wanted to make a cup of tea or something at night. And then travel, the expense of going back and forth from home. So all these things add up. So it was like $25,000 for my daughter's first year, which I was like, whoa, that's a lot. And just some fun pictures. When we knew that she was going to be going away to school, we made a list and we started shopping back in May. Don't wait until August to buy everything you need for school. I mean, first of all, we don't even know what the school year is going to look like in the fall. Colleges and universities, I think, are going to make that call around May, June to see whether it's going to be in person again or if it'll be hybrids like we have right now. But in terms of residents, we made a list, and I had a list on my phone, and I started shopping over the summer. Whenever I'd see anything on sale at Costco, cha-ching, I buy it, put it away in those plastic bins, and I bought a little bit at a time. Because for me, single income, it's a lot to pay for all that stuff all at once. So if you have the opportunity to start buying a little bit of time, that's my advice. And also, I want to throw in that depending on whether your child is going to live by themselves in the dorm room, that affects the price. My daughter chose to have one roommate, so double occupancy was a little bit less than single. And at Queen's, they had choices of single, double, triple, or quad. So the more kids sharing a room, the price comes down a wee bit. Fast forward a second year, tuition went up a little bit. So $77.50. Fees stayed about the same. A little bit drop in the price was in living expenses because remember, residence is only guaranteed for first year. For upper years, you're looking at off-campus housing. And man, you got to look early. I couldn't believe that they started looking for off-campus housing in October first year. So that $10,000 was she chose to live in a house with 5 other girls. And plus, she had to pay for rent, utilities, and food. No meal plan for year 2, folks. And again, factoring in travel and miscellaneous. So she's lucky that she found a really nice house in Kingston. And then when it came time to buy furniture, again, I don't have any spare furniture. So I started shopping early. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that as is section of IKEA. I love that section. And that's where I found a lot of things for her dorm room because it was already chipped and marked off half price. So start and look at those discount bins at HomeSense for pillows with fancy pillows with a little stain on it. Guess what? Mama's good at getting those stains out. So we saved a lot of money. And again, no meal plan. I don't know if your kids know how to cook, but y'all better start teaching them how to cook because kids love to order Uber Eats and you can't be Uber eating everything because that's going to lead to more student debt. So that picture of my trunk there, when I used to drop her off at school at the end of August, I would go to Costco, do one big shop for her, and then she'd be on her own for the rest of the semester. And she got quite good at cooking some meals. She doesn't cook every day because, again, it's busy. She would prep on Sundays, cook a bunch, and like put them into little Tupperware dishes. And then she'd have her little meals for a few days at a time. So teach your kids how to prep meal plan. And again, that's a really good tip on saving money for school. In terms of what's available, hopefully these terms are not foreign to you. The word scholarship tends to be associated with academic merit. So especially high school students, when you're applying to colleges and universities, the higher your marks, you might be offered a scholarship in addition to your offer of admission. Bursaries and grants are based more on financial need than they are about the grades. But some of them do also have academic requirements as well. And then there's things called awards that don't really fit into the other categories. And you can win money for a lot of weird categories, which is kind of fun. I know I have a friend who went to Centennial who won $500 for being tall just because of her height. And then there's contest style awards that are kind of fun from corporate sponsors. And then there's loans. You can borrow money from a bank. You can borrow money from OSAP, which is better. Again, getting the money is not the hard part. It's the paying back the money. And it all depends about the interest rates that you have to pay attention to later on. And just to show you sort of like a perspective of how many students are on either sort of the free stuff versus the stuff you got to pay back. Just at my college in 2019, we gave away almost $8 million in the free stuff to 6,000 students. And we still had some left over that students did not apply for. More than double that are on OSAP, that rely on OSAP grants and loans. And I want to make it very clear that it's not a matter of either or. If you need money, a lot of times you can qualify for both categories because my daughter was getting OSAP grants and loans every year in university, but she also applied separately and won bursaries pretty much every year that she went to Queen's. So if you need money, be prepared that it's going to probably mean an extra application that you're going to have to fill out. So we're going to quickly talk about my favorite stuff, the free stuff. That's my favorite word in the English language. So a little bit about the free stuff. There's about $177 million available across Canada, and every year about 3%, the equivalent of $5 million goes unclaimed. And this, it's like the Home Alone guy there. This shocks me. And sometimes I'm not the speaker talking about financial aid. I've sat in on presentations given by my colleagues from other colleges or other universities. And when it comes to financial aid, they always say the same thing. We currently have money sitting in the office that nobody has applied to. And we hear people saying that they need money, but a lot of times students are not applying to it. Sometimes they don't know when, they don't know how, which is why I deliver these presentations. But some of them are just lazy. They have a sense of sort of entitlement that this money is going to magically appear. So it's important to make sure that they're being proactive. They did a survey of first-year students and said, hey, did you receive any money from your college or university? 64% said yes. And out of that chunk that said yes, a third of them said, without that money, I would not have been able to attend post-secondary. The students who really, really, really need the money are often the ones who are being the most proactive. But you have average students who, they have a little bit of money from parents, or they've been saving up, but they could use extra free money, but they don't pursue those opportunities. So this is why I do these presentations, just to tell them that there is money out there, and you don't have to be a 95 average student to get that money. Every college and university has money for students, but the way we distribute the money and the amounts are so very different. As I found out just when I was doing when my daughter was doing research, as we discussed, sometimes it's automatically offered. So students will start to get those offers from college, university. Sometimes they're going to receive an automatic scholarship, especially from the universities, and usually the students with the higher averages. Schools are competitive. They all want the top, student to go to their school. But some schools, like mine at George Brown, I don't care if you have a 95 average, we do not do automatic scholarships. With us, you have to fill out an application. That's the way we choose to do it. So again, it varies per institution. The second bullet there, some money might be renewable, which means you can get money every year that you are going to school. If it's academic or merit-based, you have to keep up your grades. So if you get that entrance scholarship, it might say, and if your grades stay within a certain range, we will automatically give you money every year. Whereas other schools, you have to fill out that piece of paper every year. So again, this is on, I say this is on the student to do the research of wherever they're going. How does that school do it? And I mean, there's no shortage of information. I mean, I bet you some of the parents, I don't know, some of you might be my age. I remember when, there was no internet when we were going to high school. So we had to physically have this information down. And now it is so easy. There's no excuse of where to look. Every college, university has a web page that's dedicated to financial aid. And when students, once they decide where they're going to that college, university, remember, there's going to be a student portal that they're going to access, right? With their student ID number and a password. It's kind of like the way they access Blueprint now to sort of like look at their academic history. The student portals, that's where they're going to go to pay for college or university, and they can do a lot of that stuff as well through their portal. And I'll share a little story with you that the first year that my daughter went away to Queens, when she came home for that first Thanksgiving, she was going into her student portal at Queens because she was looking at her list of electives that she could take for semester 2. So she finished that and she was just about to log out, and a little line caught her eye that said, "Click here to apply for a Queens bursary." And she was like, "Oh, what's that?" She clicked on it and said, "Fill this application out, submit it before December 1st. You might win money for semester 2. And she looked at me and she goes, "I didn't know you could win money in upper semesters." I'm like, "You can win money all throughout school." So that application was pretty easy. The first part said, how much money is it costing you to be at Queens? And she put in those numbers that I already shared with you: my tuition, my residence, my meal plan, my books, my everything. Part 2 is how much money do your parents make? She only has one parent, so I had to submit, I think, 3 lines off my notice of assessment for income tax purposes. And then there was a little box, part 3, that said, type a little something about yourself to tell us why you need this money. And she didn't write a big long essay. She wrote, I think, something to the extent of, "I was raised by a single mom. Money's always been tight in our family. By the time my mom pays for all her other bills, there's not a lot left over to help pay for school," which is true. She said, "Any amount I could win would make a big difference in my life. Thank you for your consideration." She hit submit. So then she goes back to Queens, finishes off her first semester, comes home for the Christmas break, and we were logging in. She logged into her student portal because we were getting ready to pay tuition for semester 2. Because remember, y'all don't have to pay for the entire year all at once. You pay half for semester 1 and then semester 2. When she logged into her student portal, she's like, "Huh." I'm like, "What's up?" She goes, "That amount, something doesn't look right. I think they forgot, something." Because we had costed out what her entire year was going to look like. So she did some digging around and she found out that bursary that she applied for in October, which she'd kind of forgotten about, she actually won. And all they did was they took that amount that she won and they applied it to what she owed for semester 2. So it brought the amount down. You know how much she won? $4,000. And she found it by accident. So my advice to students is, wherever you are going, whatever college, university, please look everywhere. Make sure you know where that information is. Because my kid found it by accident the first time, but sure enough, every year around Thanksgiving, and boy, do we give thanks, she goes to that same section, and every year there'd be another application for her to fill out. So Find out where this stuff is so that you don't miss out on any opportunities. If students happen to be going to an Ontario university, hopefully they're familiar with their website. It's great information. Ontario University's info.ca. They have a tab, Finance, Fees, and Scholarships. You click there and it'll take you to a page where you can do research into finding scholarships at the universities. You can even put in what grades you think you have. So great information there. If you're going to an Ontario college, again, our website is ontariocolleges.ca. We have a little drop down menu and you'll see they're paying for college. And again, it gives you a lot of information on financial assistance in general, but on this site, it doesn't have all the information for the colleges and colleges in Ontario. You would have to then visit each college that you're interested to find out what type of money is offered at each institutions. I also want to talk about college to university transfers. Remember, this is something that didn't exist when we were going to school. Like everything was pretty kept separate, but the bridging and joint programs, the collaboration between colleges and universities is amazing, especially when they decided to sort of split the kids into these streams, some doing the academics, some doing the applied credits. And the students who are doing applied credits, they can't go to do a degree at university or college. They have to start at college. And then there's opportunities to transfer to a university if they want to pursue their academic goals, which is great. We want every student of the province to be able to pursue their academic and career goals. But even if you are eligible to go to university, there are some perks of doing college first. So here's one of the many examples that saves you money. So I chose Bachelor of Arts of Early Childhood Studies because it's one of my favorite programs. We actually share a campus with Ryerson just for early childhood education. So you could go to Ryerson for all 4 years to do that degree. Nothing wrong with that. We love Ryerson. We have lots of joint programs with them, but you'll see it'll cost you about $28,000 in tuition fees. But if you do the program we have with them, it's actually called the consecutive diploma degree. Students will do year 1 and 2 at George Brown, year 3 and 4 at Ryerson. They actually graduate with 2 credentials. So they get a diploma from us. They get the same degree from Ryerson. And can you see that? You save over $6,000 doing it because you're only paying college tuition for year 1 and 2. So same education, lower price. Like I don't know why more people don't take advantage of these opportunities where especially if money is a concern. And if you do want to look into this, there's a really good website called ontransfer.ca. It was created by the Ontario Council on Articulations and Transfers. Big fancy word for they collected all the programs from colleges and on universities in Ontario, and you can connect the dots. And about 60,000 students transfer every year in Ontario. So they currently have partnerships between all 21 universities and the 24 colleges. Now, there is a new university that opened up this past September. I'm sure you've heard of it, Université de l'Ontario Française. Because they just opened up, they're not listed yet, but I imagine in the next year or two, they'll have some really good partnerships between the 2 French colleges, La Cité and Collège Boréal, into that French university as well, which just means more opportunities for students. So again, now, going back to how to do research, it's becoming familiar with that college or university website because we have information on how to win money. Is it by academic achievement? Is it just by program? Is it by location? Renewable? Can you get money every year? We have links to external awards. We have links to OSAP, and a lot of it sometimes is on our webpage. But as students, once you select where you're going, for example, if you're going to a college or university, when you create your profile in their student portal, a lot of them have a built-in tool where you answer a few questions about yourself, about what program you're studying, and maybe some of the financials like your family income, and they'll match you up. They'll search through their database, and it'll help match students up. So if it has a tool like that at that school that you plan to go to, please use it because it'll just mean less research that you have to do on your own. Just to show you on my website, because I'm familiar with it, if students just go to our drop-down menu, financial aid, and we have information pages on awards and scholarships. We have information just on OSAP. The work study program is great because if you are OSAP eligible, students can actually work for the college, and it's actually paid by special funding that comes from the government. We have a step-by-step guide for paying to college, and then we have our contact information. So there's so much information on all of our websites, and you can see there is literally like the way that they classify the the money at my college. There's college-wide, which means it's for anybody going to George Brown in any program, but there's subcategories within that list. So it could be if you're the first person in your family going to college or university, you could apply for a first generation bursary, or maybe you're a student of a BIPOC student or Indigenous student, and it'll be in there because it doesn't matter what program. But in the next category, divisional, that's money based on the program. So there's money just for business students or just for construction students. We had one that was for female students going into construction engineering because they're dying to get more female representation in some of these STEM careers. So again, you could apply to both categories. And then there's external awards. So external means it's not money given by us. There's outside companies, associations that donate money in the terms of scholarships and bursaries and awards. And you would find those pretty much on every college and university website because they're not exclusive, and we advertise them. Every college university would advertise them. So look at how many categories we have just here, even alumni. So even after you graduate from George Brown, you can win money for school. So there's a lot of different categories, which means it'll take a little bit of time to do some of this research. You can search unions and associations. This is one of my favorite things. Like, picture it. Liz, I sound like Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls. Picture it. Liz standing in front of a room of 300 kids, grade 12 students. And I say, how many of you know if your parents are part of a union? Maybe 3-4 hands go up and I hear, and then I'll be like, how many of you even know where your parents work? Same reaction. A lot of them don't know where you work, but they should, because a lot of companies have scholarship opportunities and unions as well. And I'm part of that first union at the top of the list. Adam and I both belong to OPSU because we work for Ontario College. And I know that our union has scholarship program for its members' kids. So again, this is a good time to reach out, and Family Day is coming up, right? So let's reach out to our family members and see if there's any opportunities based on where they work. Linda already spoke a little bit about students with exceptionalities, disabilities. And this is just, she said you can just do a Google search, which again, yes, this is just a sample of some of the websites that are out there where families can go in and self-identify and research. Because again, there is money available through these organizations. And again, you'll see my line at the bottom of the screen. Every college and university has money set aside as well. Like, I know at George Brown, because we actually teach American Sign Language as a program. And we have deaf and hard of hearing students who attend George Brown. And we have special money set aside just for students who come to us who have hearing impairments. So again, every college university might be different, but we all have money set aside for students with disabilities. And remember, even when you apply for OSAP, one of the first questions they ask you is, do you have a disability? Yes or no? And by saying yes, it flags you in the system and searches for more grants. And also, as Linda mentioned, you can reduce your course load, because when you're getting OSAP, you have to be taking at least 60% of your course load while attending post-secondary to qualify for full-time OSAP. But if you're registered as a student with disability, it goes down to 40% that you can reduce your course load and still get full-time OSAP. So it's so important to self-identify and reach out for different opportunities. There's a lot of companies and corporations that have scholarships. I used to talk about the Loblaws one. Again, I checked yesterday and they're not open. Usually they open in February, but just to show you, it's an average of 70. Like, you don't have to be a 95 average student to get money for school. And this one, I think it's about $1,500 that they would give out. And they had no set number of awards that they would give out each year. So it wasn't open yesterday, but I'm hoping it's going to open up soon. This is a fun one, Stuck at Prom, right? So the people who make duct tape. So Duck Brand duct tape. I remember when I was going to school, it only came in silver, and now it comes in a full array of colors. So every year they have this amazing contest where students design outfits. And it used to be that you would take a picture of what outfit you were going to prom. But then when the pandemic hit in 2019, in 2020, they changed it so that you didn't necessarily you're not going to prom. They knew that. So you could still do your outfit and take a picture of your design. And these were the 2020 winners. Like, look at that, made entirely out of tape. And they each won $10,000. So they have grand prize, and then they have, I think, 8 sub prizes. But I mean, for someone who's really creative, look at that. You can make an outfit out of tape and win 10 grand. So that's kind of one of the fun ones that I like talking about. You can use crowdfunding sources to raise money for school. This is something that you don't really think of. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is a young lady named Toni Morgan, actually from the GTA. And if you go on to read her story, it was quite remarkable. She was from a marginalized community, at one point was homeless, and then ends up getting accepted to Harvard. Like, if that doesn't talk about overcoming adversity. And I tell young people, this is a story that tells you that anything in this country is achievable if you're willing to work hard for it. So when she found out she was going to Harvard, she was like, oh, I'm going to need a little bit of money to help pay for that. So her friends and family created a GoFundMe account. You can see they wanted to raise 50 grand. They pretty much doubled it. So, I mean, it's hard to imagine you doing something like this at that magnitude, but whittle it down. Let's say you're going to apply for some of the free stuff that Liz tells you about. Then you're going to apply for OSAP, and you're going to find out OSAP doesn't cover everything you need. Let's say there's $2,000 left over that's not covered. Create a GoFundMe account. Hey, I need to raise $2,000 for first year. It's my dream to go to the school to study this for blah, blah, blah. A nice little story about yourself. Share it on all your social media platforms. They actually teach you how to reach out to people and write thank yous. But share it with all your friends and family. I'd be like, hello, friends and family. For the next 2, 3, 4, 100 years that I'm going to school, I need help. So for birthdays, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, no gifts. Can you please donate to me instead? I think they'd be like, wow, instead of gifts, we're going to help pay for your education. So again, it's about giving you ideas of outside of the traditional box of raising money for school. Subsequently, you can convert loyalty points to raise money to use on school. So Higher Ed Points is a company that you register, and you can convert American Express, Aeroplan, CIBC, TD points. So again, create a little account and reach out to all your friends and family. Say, hey, does anybody have any points? Can you donate them to me? Because then you can convert them into money that'll help pay for things on campus. And they also have a new scholarship program as well that was added this past year. There's award and scholarship search websites, Wyconic, Scholarships Canada. There's one called Scholar Tree, and those are available as well for you to use to do a search. I always say it's kind of like a dating site, except they match up with money, which is way better. Trust me, I've tried. So my daughter tried this. She didn't have a lot of luck because back then, again, she was so busy in school, she really didn't have time. And I'm not one of these parents that pushed her too much. But I still receive the emails that they send her, which is great because they give you notifications, say, hey, Alexia, here's what's coming up. So again, when she was doing it, when she was in grade 12, I found that even though you give them information about yourself, because they use filters, I found that sometimes there would be things coming up on her feed that was like, well, that's for like a graduate study program. That's an upper year. It doesn't apply to a first year student. So we didn't have a lot of luck, but then she gave up. She got frustrated and she gave up. And again, I was like, okay, fine. You want to miss out on the money? That's your situation. You're going to have to work hard to get that money back. This one is a fun one too. This is a company called DoSomething.org to encourage young people to get involved and do good, and you can get some money for school. So they have causes that you can find something that you're that touches your heart. They have scholarships, they have articles, lots of different things available. And I just took a quick screenshot the other day of some of the scholarship opportunities. So collecting cans, and then you could apply to win $1,000. That sewing a mask for school, tackling hunger. So they have lots of different categories, and students can enter in and they can win money prizes for school. You can also seek the services of a professional coach. Now, this is new. I started talking about Janet and Glenda this past year because honest to God, doing this job and this presentation for the last 10 years, especially if I was doing it at a high school at night, sometimes I would have parents following me out to my car to say, can we hire you to help our son or daughter? And I'm like, unfortunately, no. Because this is not all I do. I work for George Brown as a recruiter. I do a lot of other presentations. But then I met Janet and Glenda on social media. So we're both, Janet and I are both on Twitter, and we sort of found each other. I follow her, she follows me, and I've actually attended one of her workshops, and it was really good. So she's a former admissions officer, so she can work with your son or daughter to help or like write winning scholarship essays to help get more results. And also Glenda Healy, she is a former teacher. And I've attended her workshop too. And again, I just want you to know, I'm only talking about them because I can't help you because I have a full-time job, but their full-time job is to help students. So just giving you as many opportunities if you want to reach out to them. That's up to you. Another opportunity. Helpful tips: start early. I mean, I've already shown you quite a few tonight, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They say that you should set aside 1 to 2 hours per week, because it's not just point, click, and win. Like, now's the time to start doing the research and reading the criteria and saying, oh, this one sounds like me. Oh, this one does not sound like me. Oh, this one sounds like me, and flag them. And then what do you need to submit? Is it, do you have to submit an essay where they give you a topic? Is it one of those in 500 words or less, tell us why you need the money type of thing? Do you need a reference letter? Or show that you did volunteer work. So there's a lot of prep work that's involved in doing this. So you got to start now. And I mean, a lot of the deadlines are coming up now. Some in the spring, some don't even go live until the summer before college university starts. So this is why it's good to do this ongoing and keep a little portfolio. Third bullet, please proofread. Please check for spelling and grammar. They can cost you a scholarship, right? If they see that you were so careless that you just kind of zip through it and you did it, oh my God, it's due at 11:59 p.m. tonight and you're doing it at 10 p.m., they kind of know what students have put effort into it. A lot of the times you can reuse the same scholarship letter or essay, but please make sure you change the names, because it's a little awkward if you just did a copy paste and it's got the previous scholarship name for the new company. And last bullet is the most important one. Please, please, please apply to as many as you think you fit the criteria to. It's like winning the lottery, right? If I don't buy a ticket, I have zero chance. But the more tickets I buy, it increases my chance. And that's the case with scholarships and awards. Some students are like, why bother? I'm not going to win anything. And remember that slide that I showed you? $177 million that sits there, unclaimed every year. So I can't stress upon you how important it is just to make the effort, because you never know. And I hear stories like this all the time. A friend of mine worked at Centennial, told the story. She said one year they were advertising one of their bursaries to all the Centennial students. She said they sent out an email to 16,000 students saying, new bursary. Doesn't matter what year you're in, doesn't matter what program you're in. You need the money, send one up, just apply, write one of those 500 word or less letters of why you need the money. Out of 16,000 students, any guesses on how many students applied to that? I'll give you a minute or so, a couple of seconds. Only one. 16,000 emails went out and only one student applied. True story. Another one was a university rep from Ontario Tech, the Ontario University Institute out in Durham region. He says that a young man walked into financial aid and said, hi, I need some money. Do y'all have anything? And they said, yes, we have several unclaimed awards. Fill them out, leave them with us. We'll get back to you. This guy filled out a few of them. He's like, well, I'm probably not going to win, but you never know. He gets a call back saying, you won some money. Come down and get your check. And he ran down to financial aid. He said, just out of curiosity, which one did I win? They said, are you aware that you filled out one that was for female students? And he was like, no. And they said, well, lucky for you, no female students applied, so we're going to give it to you anyhow. True story. And I hear stories like this all the time where you might be the only one. And again, I get a lot of thank you emails and letters from parents over the years. And this is one of my favorite ones. A mom and daughter who attended one of my presentations at night. I did it to a bunch of students. And they went home and they were like, okay, let's discuss. And the daughter, the highlighted part there, the daughter, like most young people, I'm not good enough. My marks aren't high enough. I don't do enough. I don't have enough hours. I don't do sports. I don't have anything outstanding. And the mom was like, listen, just do it. Liz said, just apply. And she applied to a bunch, some big, some small, and she won over 20 grand. And I've received letters, like I said, they won 3,500. They won over 5,000. And this one, 20,000. So if you're not going to make the effort, you're not going to win anything. But my advice is please, please, please just apply, because you never know. You might be the only one who applies. Now we're going to move on to the really fun stuff, OSAP. Right? So hopefully you've all heard of the term. It stands for the Ontario Student Assistance Program. It's financial aid that's made up of money that's funded by the federal and provincial governments. The larger portion is the federal, about 60 to 70%. And then the smaller portion, 30 to 40%, comes from the provincial coffers. And they take that money and they combine it to give you a combination of grants and loans. Grants is the free stuff that you get to keep, and then loan portion is the portion that you pay back after you're done. So it's interest free while you're in school full time. That's the key thing. You got to be in school full time. And then when you're done, then I'm going to walk you through a timeline of how it works, and then you got to pay it back. But tip number one, you can actually decline the loan. So maybe you don't need a lot of money. Maybe you just need a little bit because maybe you've been working every summer and you've saved up, and maybe you have some RESPs. So if you don't need it all, you can actually decline the loan and just take the grants, and then you owe nothing back to the government with interest. Most of us, like my kid, had to take all of it. But that is an option that you have. Who can apply for OSAP? It's available to Ontario residents of any age who meet the citizenship, permanent resident, protected persons, and you have to be attending an approved private or public college or university. And the program has to be approved. So I'll tell you, like 99% of them are OSAP eligible, but we have a couple of programs at George Brown that are not OSAP eligible. And one of them is like over $10,000 a year. So I just warn people that sometimes the odd program may not be approved for OSAP. The way they calculate it is first they take all of your educational costs. So that's stuff that we talked about at the beginning. Where are you going? More importantly, what subject are you going to be studying? Because every year, every college university has to update OSAP with how much are tuition fees, material fees, ancillary fees, books, supplies, equipment, etc. And then they're going to ask you where you're going to live while you're going to college or university. The farther away your school is from your home, they usually take that into consideration. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend whose kid chose to live at home because it's cheaper, but he's going to Durham College. Now that requires a GO train. So because the school is farther away, we live in downtown Toronto, they get extra money to help pay for the GO train. So you don't also always have to be living in the city that you're going to go to school. But obviously my daughter, she's in Kingston. She's not commuting. So they look at where you're living. Then they deduct the middle column, which is your financial resources. So the student income, students are expected to work to put some money towards their education. So they're on the hook for $3,600 per year. And then the rest of it is the parents. Or if it's an older student who's married or has common law, they're looking at the spousal income. So once they look at where you're going, what your resources are, what's left over, that is what they use to figure out your financial aid. If you happen to be doing one of those high cost programs, like those slides that I showed you, like the dental hygiene and denturism at George Brown, listen, OSAP doesn't cover everything. There's a cap, a limit to how much OSAP you can get. They're like, hey man, we didn't tell you to take that high cost program. But if you are applying for OSAP and you are eligible, you will automatically be considered for something called the Student Access Guarantee, which kicks in a little bit extra money to pay for those higher than average cost programs. So it's not a separate application. It's once you're applying to OSAP, they see that you're applying, that you're in one of those high cost programs, and they'll see if you're eligible for OSAP. Then they'll usually kick in. You can get a little bit extra. Now, there's something called the OSAP Aid Estimator, which is a great little tool that you can do right now to say, how much might we get? Now, I went in and tried to put in September 2021, and you get the message saying, yeah, we're not open yet. We're not open for business. So they don't usually go live until May. It's usually, depending on the calendar, it's either the last week of April or the first week of May. Some years they try to get their act ready earlier, but usually it's the first week of May. Because then by that time, a lot of students will have received their offers and they kind of know where they're going by the time May rolls around. But I wanted to show you an OSAP Aid Estimator example. So I had to do it. They don't give you the costing for 2021. So I had to do it for 2020. So here's an example. Someone who's going to study kinesiology at Queen's, the parental income is 65, no student assets, and they're going to Queen's University, living at home. Here's the estimate. They would get $4,100 in grant. That's the free stuff, plus $5,300 in the loan for a total of $9,400. Then I ran it through again, same everything except living away from home. And you'll see it's increased to $6,000 in grant, $10,000 in loan, and for a total of $16,000. So you'll see same program, same parental income, but because the student is going away from home, they would get more because they're going to pay for the cost of living expenses in that regard. And then this is how it usually goes, the breakdown of loan versus grant depending on the family income. So at the bottom of my chart, you'll see the family income starting at 50,000 going all the way up to 145. The blue stuff is the grant. The green stuff is the loan portion. I gave it that the Grinch Who Stole Christmas color because nobody, we all want the blue stuff. We all want the free stuff. So as you can see, the higher the family income, the grant, the free stuff disappears, and the loan portion also decreases too. All they look at is the family income. The only thing they'll make a consideration for is how many kids do you have that are going to school at the same time. So here's an example. A good friend of mine, the son was starting university the same year my daughter did, 2016. So he says, the boy, we tried the OSAP and he got 0 because, he comes from a family where both parents work and they make a lot more money than I do. So the boy qualified for $0 for year one. Hashtag first world problems, right? But when the boy was going into second year, his younger sister was going to be starting university. So the boy tried for OSAP again. And because now that there were 2 children from the same family, both going to university or college at the same time, his son applied for OSAP and got $2,000 in loan money. Oh, no grant, but he got $2,000 in loan money because now there were 2 kids. So that's what they look at. I have a friend who has triplets. So can you imagine 3 going to school at the same time? I can't even. So the way it works, I already mentioned that it doesn't go live until May, but step 1, you can register. So if you're a first-time user to OSAP, you'd go to their website and then instead of log in, just go to register because you're a new user, so you have to create a profile. So you can do this part anytime. You have to go in and fill out everything about yourself, full name, date of birth, social insurance number, etc. You can also link your OSAP account to your college and university applications, which is useful. So these acronyms here in the second paragraph for the parents who are not familiar, OCAS stands for the Ontario College Application Service. That's the website that handles all the applications to Ontario colleges. And then OUAC is the Ontario University Application Center, which is for all the Ontario universities. So if you've applied to either of those sites, you can actually link them, put your numbers of your applications, your OCAS or OUAC account number, and it'll link it to your OSAP application. So they'll know, oh, we know what you're applying to, so we can already start to figure out the costing. You don't have to do that, but it's a little bit an added feature that they provide to students. New last year, first-time users will also have to complete a new information module. So they want to teach young people about financial literacy. So you won't be able to do your application until you have done these modules. So basically, they're going to show you some screens that's going to explain how OSAP works, your roles and responsibilities if you become an OSAP recipient, and basic financial information like creating a budget, understanding credit and debt. And then they ask you questions to see if you understood what you read about. So you have to do this before you can do your application. Once you're done, you'll see this message that says, yay, you've successfully completed all the information sessions, and now you can proceed and then do your application. So once the application cycle goes live, then you log in and you would start a new application. There's basically 4 sections that you have to go through. The school and the program. So I'm going to York University to study a Bachelor of Arts. Tell us about you. Are you a single dependent student, or are you married independent student with kids? And then number 3, all about your family. So this is where the parents have to be involved. And then there's some paperwork, some forms you have to submit, and then you submit and review. So I'm going to walk you through what this looks like. So this example is based on a student who's going to be starting a 4-year program starting this September. So May, the website opens up. You start your application, and remember, they will have already given them full name, personal info, financial information about the student and the parent, name of the school and the program, the student declaration form, which basically the student signs to say everything I'm declaring on this application is correct to my that I confirm that it's correct, and you're giving them permission to check Canada Revenue, because remember, they got your social insurance number to see the income. And then if the parents are on the application, again, we have to sign a form to say what we are submitting is correct, that we're declaring is correct. And then it also gives them permission to check Canada Revenue to verify parental income. And then number 6 is the Master Financial Student Assistance Agreement. That's the lifetime agreement between the student and OSAP, so they only have to do it once. So you do all this, right? Just a quick little about the parents. Oh, so we have to ask this all the time. Which parents? So my parents are divorced. Who do I have to put on the application? So I remember, I'm going to give you this in a slide. This will be included so you can read it separately. But basically, your parents are married, remarried, in common law relationship. Both parents' information is required. Divorced, separated, widowed, single. The parent that you live with the most or currently, or who holds primary custody, they are on the application. If it's shared joint, the kid lives with half the time with one, half the time with the other, either parent. And then if one parent is remarried or becomes in a common law relationship, that person, the step parent, must also be. So basic stuff like this. There's extenuating circumstances that sometimes, if a student is estranged from their parents, that's an extra, thing, a notarized letter, or child services has to get involved just to explain that there's extenuating circumstances. But generally, that's the way it works. So you do your application in May. Once you've been approved, usually my daughter, when she would do her application, within 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks, because she would do it really early, she would find out if she was approved and how much she would be getting. Then the money is split between a 60-40 split. So you get 60% of your money comes late August, early September. And then the remaining 40% will come in late December, early January to pay for semester 2. They deduct what is owed to the college or university first, and then the balance will be put into the student's bank account to help pay for books and all the stuff that they need. All right, so it's a 60-40 split. You have to reapply for OSAP every year of the program if you need it. So sometimes I have students say, listen, Liz, I've been working since grade 9. I have enough saved up for year 1. So do I have to apply? Can I only apply for year 2? I'm like, absolutely. You can apply to OSAP whenever you need it. But even if you do have the money saved up for first year, you should still do the application just to see if you get any of the free grant money. Right? Because you remember, you don't have to take the loan portion. So reapply for every year that you need it. And then every September, January, you're going to get that 60-40 split. Fast forward, the day you graduate, the clock starts ticking. They give you 6 months of no payment. It's like Leon's Don't Pay a Cent event. You got 6 months. You don't have to pay. That's your time to start looking and get a job. And then when your 6 months is due, then you're going to start paying down your loan. If students are happen to be graduating from one program and they're going to do another program, you have to notify the National Student Loan Center to say, hi, I finished my undergrad, but I'm going in to do a postgraduate certificate at a college, or I want to do a master's. So once they see that you are enrolled full-time in that second program, your first loan is on hold. No interest will be added. That's the key thing. You have to be in school full time, as my daughter found out, which I'll tell you about. But again, assuming that the student graduates, 6 months to get a job. During that 6-month period, will they be charged interest? Again, this has changed 3 times over the past couple of years. It depends on the government who's running the province, because at one point they were paying on the federal portion and not the provincial, but then they added the provincial when Doug Ford became premier, and then the federal government said, well, we changed our mind, so now they're not paying on the federal. So remember, in 2, 3, 4 years after your son or daughter graduates, or they're finished and have to pay off that OSAP loan, it might change again. So as of today, during that 6 months, they're only being charged interest on the provincial portion, which is the smaller amount, which is good. And then when your 6 months is due, as my daughter found out, all of a sudden she's like, oh, guess what? I had an automatic withdrawal from my bank account. $350 odd was gone from my bank account today, because she had forgotten that her due date was up, and she had signed up for automatic withdrawal. So they just start taking it out of your bank account, right? That's the way it works. They do have an OSAP repayment calculator. So if you do your initial OSAP estimator, you know, those sample where you can say, how much might I get? Whatever it says for the loan, times that by how many years your program is. And then you can go to the repayment calculator and plug in, for example, I put $28,000 and I want to take 60 months, 5 years to pay it off. And then it'll plug the rate in, it'll plug in the 2.75, and it'll tell you you're going to have to make monthly payments of $535 if you want to pay your loan off in 5 years. And you'll see there the average is 9.5 years. Obviously, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because right now it's 2.75 and they work on whatever the prime rate. And I checked the other day, the prime rate is still at 2.45, and because there's a breakdown of a different rate for the federal and a different rate for the provincial. I suck at math, so thank God they have the OSAP repayment calculator to do all the math for you. But that's the key thing when it comes time to paying off that loan. I've actually had friends who kids were older than my daughter, and they said, listen, our kid took the OSAP every year, and then when it came time to graduate, we looked at the interest rate at OSAP, and then we went to a bank. And if it was cheaper in the bank, they would get a bank loan or a line of credit, take that money, pay off the OSAP loan, and then just pay off the bank loan. And believe me, a year ago, that interest rate was not 2.75, it was 6.0. So again, we don't know what the interest rates are going to be like in 2, 3, 4 years when this cohort of students is going to be graduating from post-secondary. So it's good to keep an eye on those interest rates because, like I said earlier, getting the money is easy. It's the paying back that becomes tricky. Tips for applying for OSAP: as soon as it goes live, please just start your application just to make sure, because it can take 6 to 8 weeks to process your application. If you live at home, 2 parents and they both work, it's pretty easy. But I've talked to students who are like, I actually have a parent who works in another country. So when you can't check Canada Revenue and you have to get documents from another country, again, it can take a little bit longer to verify. Number 2, please be honest. Don't lie. This is the government. They're going to find out, right? Number 3, most important for young people. This is their first opportunity to start adulting, right? Every kid's dream is to move out of their parents' house and become independent. This is where you got to have a serious talk with them. I had that talk with my kid. I said, listen, it's a privilege to get to go to Queens and go away from school. I said, I talk to kids every single day whose parents cannot afford them to go away to school. I said, so you better take this seriously. No overspending. I mean, she overspent a little bit on first year, and then we had to have that talk when she came home for the summer break. After that, I haven't had to give my kid any money. If she comes home, I like to treat her to some new clothes, whatever, but she barely asks me for money. And especially I told her, I said, your summer job, that money you make over the summer, that's your fun money. I'm not going to be funding any keggers. I'm not buying any more Sephora products. I'm done. So again, how are we going to ensure that our kids are going to be able to live on their own if we don't have that financial talk with them about overspending and the consequences? So please tell them on not to overspend. That, and like I said earlier, teach them how to cook so they can't Uber eat all their food. Teaching them about having emergency money on hand, all the stuff. We have to teach them about financial literacy so that we know that they're going to be okay to be on their own. Number 4, keep an eye on those interest rates. And number 5, if you don't have enough money, remember, every college university has financial advisors. We have emergency funds and bursaries that are available to students. Especially with this pandemic, food insecurity has increased. We all have food banks that students rely on heavily. So I usually tell kids who are going to college or university, I said, hopefully you're going to be okay. If you're not okay, please remember, you're considered, like Linda said, you're considered an adult when you go to college or university. We don't legally can't go chasing after you. You have to come and ask for help. But if you're doing okay, you and your family are okay. If your school is doing a food drive, please donate a little bit of food as much as you can, because there are students who are telling me that they're surviving on ramen noodles from Dollarama. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good ramen noodle, but you can't survive just eating that, right? Your brain needs healthy food. So give a little bit if you can. And remember, jobs on campus are amazing. And again, talk to your bank. There are student loans, student line of credit that are available. Like if you were going to go find a mortgage for your house, you're not going to go with the first option. You're going to shop around. So you should be shopping around to see what's available. Like I'm a BMO customer, so I just went to my bank website, and they said they have lines of credit for undergraduate. They have professional student lines of credit. And if you want to do med school or dental school, God help you. But there are always options. And having a line of credit is good because, as you see in this example on the left-hand side, if you have a $15,000 line of credit, if you use 5 for school, you're only getting charged interest on the 5. You're not getting charged interest on anything else. You still have 10,000 sitting in your line of credit. So again, there's lots of different options available for students to use. Students can get a lot of discounts with that student card, and this is the key thing if you want to save a little bit of money. It entails a little bit of planning. So, for example, my daughter, if she books her Via Rail tickets ahead of time, she can get a discount and she gets the lower rates. If you do it last minute, $100 versus $40. In Kingston, they tell all the students going to St. Lawrence, Queens, the Royal Military College, saying, hey, if you're doing your grocery shopping, there's a certain day of the week you go, you show your student card, you get a 10% discount on your groceries. So please make sure that they're taking advantage of that so they can save a little bit of money when they're doing even food shopping. 53% of students say that they have to work while they're going to school. That is the reality. And times are even tougher because of this global pandemic that they're in. You know, parents have lost jobs, layoffs and stuff. So it's going to be even tougher now. And there are a lot of jobs that are available. Even if it's not on campus, there are still ways that that students can work. And my daughter's one of those. I mean, she worked all through school, and it's not easy. Like it's a little bit tougher to go to work while you're going to school. And believe me, my kid's not a nerd. She inherited her partying from her mother. That's what I can say. I was not an academic student. She's way smarter and more dedicated in schoolwork, but she worked hard Monday to Friday so that she could have fun on the weekends with her friends. And these are just to show you that first column, RESP. The RESP does not affect how much OSAP you get, because they took that restriction off a couple of years ago. For example, we had $30,000 in RESP money set aside for her. Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa. So my daughter pulled $5,000 every year to put towards school. And then you'll see jobs from Queens. She won bursaries pretty much first year, second year, third year. And then you'll see OSAP grants. That's the free money. And then her OSAP loans that she got every year. And then you'll see that total amount, what she was owing at the end of fourth year. And you'll see by the time she got to fourth year, she was doing a full-time job. So she had to go down to part-time studies. And that triggered OSAP to send her a notification saying, hi, we noticed that you're not full-time anymore, so you have 6 months to start paying your loan back. So that's the key thing I stress. You have to be full-time. And because she was working so many hours during her third and fourth year, she took a fifth year. But you know what? She ran for vice president, got it. So this year she's vice president of university affairs. So, and then her remaining $10,000 of her RESP, she shifted it over to reduce her student debt load from 27. I'll go back. From 27 down to 17. And she's going to have a great resume at the end of this, but she works hard, right? It's a challenge, but boy, you're going to graduate with experience and a good resume, and you'll make some good money to help so you're not graduating with such a huge debt load. In terms of contact information, again, if you want to reach out to Janet or Glenda to say, hey, I heard about you, how can you help my son or daughter? That's an option. If you do plan to come to my college, I can connect you with financial aid. But also, I know a lot of recruiters in Ontario. So if your son or daughter plans to be going to a school in Ontario, send me an email. I can connect you to the recruiters at those institutions. Because remember, you need to connect with that particular college or university to see what's available for them, because it's different at every school. This is pretty much the list of everything I talked about tonight, and there's a few extra Easter eggs thrown in there. But again, you can either take a screenshot right now, but I'm gonna give a copy of this to Lou, and he can post it however you guys post for students. Last but not least, I hope this presentation helps you to avoid this. So years from now, when your son or daughter is asked if they've paid off their student loans yet, I hope they're not gonna have a reaction like this little guy. That's honest to God one of my favorite memes out there. I love his little reaction. And if you do have a smartphone handy right now, if you point your camera right now at that QR code, it'll open up automatically to my Dropbox folder where you can download a copy of this presentation, an award bursary scholarship listing, and some OSAP FAQs that's available. But I will submit all of this to Lou so he can post it somehow for your school. That wraps it up for me. I'm going to stop presenting now and throw it back to Lou.
Thank you very much, Liz. We really appreciate all this valuable information. You've taught me a lot as my son is moving into grade 12 and making me reflect on some things that maybe we could have done a little bit differently with my daughter who's in third year university. So thank you for all of that information. I'm just going to wrap up our presentation with just a couple more slides and just some information on where you can get some of these great resources and links. One really great resource that you may remember from grade 9 is Exploring the Possibilities. So if you have the link to the slide deck, all you need to do is click here for ETP, and you can open it up on page 11. There are a number of websites, many of which Liz referred to in her presentation. There are QR codes for you to access those websites where you can do some more research around scholarships and bursaries and grants and loans. Pages 33 and 34 are also great reflection tools for you to consider, who do I want to become? It allows you the opportunity to explore the different pathways, apprenticeship and skilled trades, college, university, and the world of work. So that's a really great resource for you to access as well. You'll notice at the bottom of the slide, the bit.ly that will allow you to access Exploring the Possibilities, our updated version of our publication. So again, you'll have that in the slide deck that I shared in the email. A couple of scholarship websites that Liz, I think, actually referred to them, but this is one that's included in Exploring the Possibilities, and this one here is one that you can explore. Brought to you by the province of Ontario. Just before we wrap up, I want to let you know that for those who might be exploring the world of work, we are going to be hosting a session. It's a new one. It wasn't included on the poster that went out earlier this month. It is going to be featuring presentations from the Workforce Planning Board of York Region. We'll also have the Pathways team who will be delving a little bit more into apprenticeship pathways. And we have a speaker from the Student Services Department who'll be providing some valuable information regarding employment inclusion for students with special needs. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Again, you have access to this in the slide deck, and a school messenger email went out just the other day with this updated information. Our next information session, I know most of you are probably in grade 12, but we may have some younger students. Our next presentation is actually next Thursday for students in grade 8 to 11. And we are going to be looking a little bit at course selection, exploring the My Blueprint tool, looking at various programs that the YCDSB offers, including Specialist High Skills Major, Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, co-op, e-learning, a number of different programs that we are offering. So if you are interested, or you know families that might be interested who go to our board, by all means do share this information with them so that they can attend. Moving on to that is the last slide. There you go. So at this point, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Linda for such an inspiring and fantastic presentation. I'd like to thank Liz as well. You've done a fantastic job of making the financial literacy pieces of post-secondary, access to a variety of different funds, just letting us know, generally speaking, what's out there, and sometimes very specifically speaking, what's out there, and encouraging us to just apply and see where the chips fall. So thank you, Liz, for all of your advice. I want to thank Adam. Adam and I have actually had quite a rich discussion in the background. A number of you have asked some questions. I will be responding to those questions directly. So stay tuned for that. You'll get an email. I'd also like to thank Frank Nardi, who helped us out at the beginning and is a valued colleague in the Pathways Department. And of course, thank you, Michael Poupard, who is helping to handle the production end of this for us and managing the YouTube live stream. Thank you all very much for a great evening, and I hope you have enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great weekend.
Thank